Family reunions are supposed to be about reconnecting, sharing memories, and celebrating together. But the Thompson family reunion had become something else entirely. An annual competition, a showcase of success and status, a chance to prove who had climbed highest on the corporate ladder. My name is Marcus Thompson, and until 3 months ago, I was the lead developer at Nexus Technologies, one of Silicon Valley's fastest-growing software companies. Today, I was the family disappointment, the cautionary tale, the topic of whispered conversations around the punch bowl. Did you hear about Marcus? Such a shame. And at his age, I stood at the edge of my aunt's perfectly manicured lawn, nursing a drink and watching my more successful relatives hold court. My cousin Peter, CEO of his own startup, was regaling everyone with stories of his latest funding round. His sister Amanda, a senior executive at Google, was showing off photos of her new Malibu beach house. Marcus, Peter's voice carried across the lawn, deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. Come join us. We were just discussing career transitions. The smirk on his face said everything. He'd been waiting for this moment for 20 years, ever since we were both junior developers fresh out of college. While he'd focused on climbing the management ladder, I'd stayed in the trenches, writing code, solving problems, building things that actually worked. How's the job search going? Amanda asked, feigning concern. I heard Nexus let you go during their last restructuring. Such a volatile industry, isn't it? Volatile. Right. That's one way to describe what had happened at Nexus. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was the real story behind my termination, a story that was about to unfold in exactly 3 minutes. I checked my watch. 2:57 p.m. Pacific Time. Right on schedule, every computer at Nexus Technologies would be starting their automated weekend system upgrade, including the CEO's personal laptop, which he never let anyone else touch. You know, Peter continued, warming to his favorite subject, himself. In today's tech world, you have to be innovative, forward-thinking. My company just closed a $50 million round because we understand where the industry is going. I took another sip of my drink, remembering late nights in my office at Nexus, building something that would make Peter's startup look like a school science project. Fired at 40. Pathetic. That was my youngest cousin, Trevor, fresh out of business school and full of opinions about an industry he barely understood. Guess programming isn't your thing after all, cousin. The words echoed across the lawn. Other conversations stopped. All eyes turned to see how the family failure would respond. I checked my watch again. 2:58 p.m. Let me tell you what really happened at Nexus Technologies. 5 years ago, I started working on a side project. Not just any project. An AI-driven security system that could adapt to and neutralize cyber threats in real time. I called it Project Guardian. While my colleagues focused on flashy features and quick profits, I built something revolutionary. Layer by layer, line by line, I created an AI that could think, learn, and protect better than anything on the market. But I wasn't naive. I'd seen too many developers lose their work to corporate greed. So I built Project Guardian with a fail-safe, a hidden signature in the code that would activate under specific conditions. 2 months ago, Robert Kane, Nexus's ambitious new CEO, called me into his office. Marcus, he said, not looking up from his laptop, we're going in a different direction. The board wants to focus on consumer applications. Your security project is being terminated. I started to explain the potential of Project Guardian, but he cut me off. We've already sold your code base to a military contractor. They'll retool it for their needs. Your services are no longer required. What Kane didn't know was that I'd anticipated this move. The day I started Project Guardian, I embedded a verification protocol deep in its architecture. If anyone tried to modify or repurpose the core code without proper authorization, the system would reveal its true creator. Of course, I'd said calmly, gathering my things. I understand. The next day, headlines announced that Nexus Technologies had signed a $1.5 billion contract with the Department of Defense, based on revolutionary AI security technology that Robert Kane and his team had developed. My termination agreement included a standard non-disclosure clause. I signed it without argument, much to Kane's surprise. He probably expected me to fight, to claim credit, to demand recognition. But I knew something he didn't. Project Guardian wasn't just a security system. It was a testament to every developer who'd ever had their work stolen, every innovator who'd been pushed aside by corporate politics. And in exactly 2 minutes, as Nexus's systems ran their weekend upgrade, a very special piece of code would execute. You should have focused on management like me, Peter was saying, enjoying his moment of superiority. Left the coding to younger people with fresher ideas. I smiled, remembering the elegant simplicity of the verification protocol. When triggered, it would systematically catalog every line of Project Guardian's code, tracing its development history back to its original creator. My phone buzzed, a news alert. Amanda noticed. Job offer? She asked sweetly. I hear McDonald's is hiring. 2:59 p.m. Somewhere in Silicon Valley, in Nexus Technologies' headquarters, Robert Kane was probably sitting in his office, preparing for Monday's board meeting where he would take full credit for my work. The same Robert Kane who'd once told me that real innovators don't waste time writing code. The same Robert Kane who'd sold my life's work without a second thought. The same Robert Kane who was about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating outdated developers. Actually, I said, raising my voice just enough to catch everyone's attention, why don't we all take out our phones? I think the next few minutes are going to be quite interesting. Trevor snorted. What? Did you finally figure out how to code a calculator app? I checked my watch one final time. 3:00 p.m. Time for Project Guardian to reveal its true guardian. My phone buzzed first, then Peter's, then Amanda's. Within seconds, the peaceful afternoon air was filled with notification sounds as every phone at the reunion lit up simultaneously. Breaking news. Nexus Technologies stock halted after authentication protocol reveals unauthorized code transfer. Peter's smirk faltered as he read the headline. Amanda's perfectly manicured fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled through the article. What's happening? Trevor demanded, his youthful arrogance cracking. I took a casual sip of my drink. Oh, just a small software update. You see, when I built Project Guardian, I included something special. A little gift for anyone who tried to steal it. More phones buzzed. More headlines appeared. Department of Defense suspends $1.5 billion Nexus contract pending investigation. Nexus CEO Robert Kane unavailable for comment as code authenticity questions emerge. Project Guardian. The hidden story behind Silicon Valley's biggest AI security system. What did you do? Peter whispered, his entrepreneurial confidence evaporating. I pulled out my laptop, the same laptop I'd used to write the original code for Project Guardian. Would you like to see? After all, you're all such experts in innovation and forward thinking. The family gathered around as I opened a secure browser window. On screen, a live feed showed Project Guardian's authentication protocol executing across Nexus's networks. Every piece of software has a signature, I explained, my voice carrying across the now silent lawn. Like DNA, you can try to hide it, modify it, claim it as your own, but with the right tools, you can always trace it back to its source. Lines of code scrolled across my screen, each one documenting its own creation history. Dates, timestamps, developer signatures, all pointing back to one source. 5 years, 3 months, and 12 days, I continued. That's how long I spent building Project Guardian. Every night, every weekend, while Kane and his visionaries were at charity galas and tech conferences taking credit for other people's work. My Aunt Patricia, Peter and Amanda's mother, gasped as another news alert appeared. Nexus Technologies faces multiple federal investigations over code authentication scandal. But they fired you, Trevor protested weakly. They owned your work. I smiled, pulling up another window. Actually, they didn't. You see, Project Guardian was never a Nexus project. I built it independently, on my own time, using my own resources. I only tested it on Nexus's systems after receiving written authorization that specifically maintained my ownership rights. The document appeared on screen, an email chain that I'd carefully preserved, showing Kane's dismissive approval of my hobby project. When Kane sold my code to the military, he triggered the authentication protocol, but I designed it to wait, to give them time to dig themselves deeper. Every time they modified the code, every time they claimed credit, the system documented it. Peter leaned forward, his startup founder's mind finally grasping the implications. The military contract was for stolen technology, I finished. Kane sold something he didn't own, something he didn't create, something he didn't understand. And now, everyone knows it. My phone rang, a number I recognized from my Nexus days. Kane's personal line. I let it go to voicemail. But that's not even the best part, I continued, opening one final document. While Kane was busy erasing my name from Project Guardian, I was filing patents. 17 of them, covering every key innovation in the system. Amanda's legal expertise kicked in. You mean Nexus doesn't own Project Guardian? I do. Every line of code, every algorithm, every innovation they sold to the military, it all belongs to me. And thanks to Kane's very public claims about developing it himself, proving theft will be remarkably easy. Trevor, his earlier mockery forgotten, scrolled through news articles on his phone. The stock, it's going to crash when trading resumes. Probably, I agreed. Corporate fraud tends to have that effect. More phones rang. Reporters, lawyers, investment firms, all trying to reach various members of my successful family. Peter's startup investors would have questions about his judgment. Amanda's position at Google might need review, given her connection to a major tech scandal. Why? Peter finally asked. Why wait? Why let them fire you if you knew you had this? I thought about all the developers I'd known who'd had their work stolen, their innovations credited to others, their contributions erased by corporate politics. Because sometimes justice needs an audience, I replied. Sometimes people need to learn that success isn't about who can take credit fastest. It's about who actually does the work. My phone buzzed again. An email from Sarah Martinez, CEO of Oracle. Impressive authentication protocol. Would you be interested in discussing Project Guardian's real potential? Dinner next week? I showed the email to my cousins. Guest programming is still my thing after all. The sun was setting over my aunt's perfect lawn, casting long shadows over the gathered family members. In Silicon Valley, I knew Kane was probably watching his carefully constructed facade crumble. Tomorrow, the real investigations would begin. But right now, in this moment, I watched my successful relatives realize that real innovation, real value, isn't about titles or funding rounds or beach houses. Sometimes it's about being underestimated, about being dismissed as outdated or redundant. And sometimes it's about writing code so elegant, so perfect, that it can wait patiently for years until the exact right moment to reveal its truth. Peter's phone rang again, probably another worried investor. Amanda was frantically texting her PR team at Google. Trevor had gone very quiet, his youthful arrogance replaced by a new understanding of how the tech world really works. I checked my watch one final time. 3:30 p.m. Project Guardian had done its job. The truth was out. And somewhere in Silicon Valley, a very expensive lesson about respecting developers was just beginning. 1 month can change everything. I sat in Oracle's main conference room, watching as Sarah Martinez finished her presentation to the board. On the screen behind her, Project Guardian's capabilities were displayed in real time, protecting Oracle's vast network with an efficiency that made their previous security systems look primitive. In the 4 weeks since implementation, Sarah concluded, Guardian has prevented over 3,000 sophisticated cyber attacks, adapted to 17 previously unknown threat vectors, and reduced our security response time by 89%. The board members' expressions had transformed from skeptical to amazed during the demonstration. They'd seen the headlines about Nexus's collapse, watched the congressional hearings about software IP theft, and followed the SEC investigation that had destroyed Robert Kane's career. But seeing Guardian in action was different. And you developed this independently? One board member asked me. While working at Nexus? I nodded. Nights, weekends, using my own equipment. Nexus only provided the testing environment with documented permission that maintained my IP rights. The same testing environment that had allowed me to perfect Guardian's authentication protocol, the very feature that had exposed Kane's theft. Well, Sarah smiled. I think we're all in agreement. Shall we make the announcement? The board's vote was unanimous. By evening, the news would break. Oracle was acquiring exclusive rights to Project Guardian for $4.2 billion, with me joining as Chief Technology Officer to oversee its implementation across their global network. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the Nexus scandal broke. Tech journalists wanted interviews. Developers' rights organizations wanted me to speak at conferences. Congressional committees wanted my testimony on corporate IP theft. But the messages I found most interesting were from other developers. Countless stories of stolen work, erased contributions, and innovations credited to executives who couldn't write a line of code. Guardian had become more than just a security system. It had become a symbol of justice in an industry that too often rewarded theft over creation. As I left Oracle's headquarters, my phone rang, a familiar number. Hello, Peter, I answered, hearing my cousin's strained voice. Marcus, I need your help. After the Nexus scandal, Peter's startup had faced intense scrutiny. Investors had discovered that his revolutionary technology was mostly borrowed from his developers, good people who'd been silenced by NDAs and legal threats. My developers are leaving, he continued. The funding's dried up. I didn't understand. Didn't understand what? That real innovation comes from respect, from giving credit where it's due. He paused. From actually knowing how to build something, not just how to take credit for it. I thought about the young developers at his company, people who'd faced the same dismissal and disrespect I had. Send me their contact information, I said. Oracle's building a new development team for Guardian's expansion. We need people who understand both code and ethics. Later that evening, I visited Nexus's former headquarters, now mostly empty as the company faced bankruptcy and criminal investigations. Kane had been indicted for fraud. The board had resigned in disgrace. The military contract had been canceled. But in the parking lot, I saw a familiar face. Jimmy Chen, a junior developer who'd always supported my work at Nexus. "Mr. Thompson," he called out. Or should I say Mr. CTO? I smiled. Just Marcus is fine. How are you holding up? Actually, amazing. After Guardian exposed Kane, we junior developers formed a coalition, started documenting everything. Turns out Kane had stolen code from dozens of us. He showed me his phone, a website where developers were sharing their stories, supporting each other, demanding recognition for their work. We're calling it the Guardian Protocol, Jimmy grinned. A way to protect developers' rights and expose theft. You inspired it. I looked at the website, remembering all the times I'd seen talented developers pushed aside, their work stolen, their contributions erased. Send me the link, I said. Oracle's new ethics board might be interested in supporting this. My phone buzzed again, Amanda this time. After the scandal, Google had launched an internal investigation into code attribution. She'd been asked to step down pending review. I get it now, she texted. Why you stayed in development instead of chasing titles. Real power isn't in taking credit. It's in creating something that matters. At home, I opened my laptop, the same one I'd used to write Guardian's first lines of code. On my screen, the system hummed quietly, protecting networks across the globe. But its real impact wasn't in the cyber attacks it prevented or the billions it was worth. Its real impact was in the changes it had sparked. New industry standards for code attribution. Stronger protections for developers' rights. A growing movement demanding respect for the people who actually build the technology that powers our world. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Trevor, my youngest cousin who'd mocked my career at the reunion. Starting coding classes next week, he wrote. Think you could mentor me? I want to learn how to build something real. I smiled, remembering my own journey from underestimated developer to industry changemaker. Lesson 1, I replied. Success isn't about who takes credit. It's about who does the work, and about protecting what you build. Outside my window, the Silicon Valley sunset painted the sky in shades of possibility. Tomorrow, I would start my new role at Oracle. Next week, I would testify before Congress about protecting developers' rights. Next month, the Guardian Protocol would launch globally. But tonight, I opened a new project file on my laptop. Another idea, another innovation, another chance to prove that real power in tech isn't about titles or theft or corporate politics. It's about writing code that matters, code that protects, code that reveals truth. And sometimes, it's about showing the world that the developers they underestimate today might just revolutionize their industry tomorrow. After all, every line of code tells a story. Mine just happened to change everything.
Hey, this soup for breakfast doesn't taste great. It's too watery. Why is it like this? Yeah, it's not that good. Can you make it thicker? But remember, I need to be careful with salt, as the doctor said. Who cares about that? I really like strong flavors. The one who always complains about food is my mother-in-law, Mill. She always wants food with lots of seasoning, but she's overweight and has almost diabetes. Her doctor warned her, but she doesn't seem to care and adds extra seasoning to everything I cook. I was shocked by how much salt and pepper she added to the soup I'd made carefully. Even though I use salt and seasonings with less salt, it seems like it's never enough for her. I worry she might get really sick if she keeps eating like this. Honestly, I wouldn't be too upset if something happened to her. Mill seems to enjoy making things difficult for me. She's always complaining and being mean. My name's Alice, I'm 29 years old, and I work while also taking care of the house. I've been married for 3 years, but we don't have any kids. The problem is that I can't have children, and Mill never lets me forget it. You're worthless as a woman if you can't have children. You're broken, she'd say. You should be thankful just to be allowed in this house. You're right, I am broken because we've tried so many times and I can't have kids. Talk about getting a bad deal. Ha, how can you say that? My husband laughed. Well, because a woman who can't have kids is done for, Mill added. You're right, Mom, my husband agreed. That I'm broken. I really want a baby. I've been going to the doctor while working, trying everything, but nothing's working. It's exhausting, both physically and emotionally. So I've decided to stop the treatment. It's also expensive, and it's hard to keep going for years. My husband used to say spending money on fertility treatments was pointless. But he also pushed me to get pregnant quickly. Why bother pressuring me? I can't get pregnant just because you want me to, I thought to myself. After giving up on treatments, I thought about being happy with just my husband and me. But my mother-in-law still hoped for a grandchild to tease me about. She even bought diapers and proudly showed them off. Look, I got diapers, she said excitedly. You'll need them one day. Haha, aren't those a bit small for you, Mill? I joked back. Haha, hey, these are for a baby, can't you see that? She replied. Well, I wouldn't know. I'm the broken woman who can't have kids, I retorted sarcastically. That's enough. Angrily, my mother-in-law stormed off to her room. Thank goodness, I thought, already tired from work and not wanting to deal with her mean comments anymore. It seems like she has nothing better to do than make my life miserable. We moved in with my in-laws after my father-in-law passed away a year ago. My mother-in-law was heartbroken. Then, around the same time, she was warned by her doctor about her risk of diabetes. That's why we moved in. My husband wanted to support his mom, but despite having diabetes, she's okay as long as she takes her medication and eats well. There's nothing to worry about, well, except that she often forgets her meds and eats whatever she wants, so her condition might worsen eventually. Even if that happens, I really don't want to be responsible for taking care of my mother-in-law. I'm still working and really busy. Taking care of in-laws in my 20s? No thanks. The next day was my day off, so I was doing chores around the house. My mother-in-law, who usually just sits on the sofa snacking, suddenly got up and went into my room. I didn't want her in there, but my hands were full, so I didn't say anything. I cleaned your room for you, she said. Thanks, I replied, feeling suspicious. Maybe I should switch rooms with my husband. You know, if you leave your room messy, you'll attract bugs, she chuckled. Sure, enjoy your clean room, I replied, feeling unsure about her intentions. My mother-in-law seemed to think I was grateful, which only made her behavior more suspicious. I had a feeling she was up to something. That night, I decided to sleep in my husband's room. He'd been away on business since yesterday, so he wouldn't know. Even if he finds out, I knew he wouldn't be upset. So I made my choice. I work as a nurse with regular hours, so we have separate bedrooms. Part of it is because our relationship has cooled off, but mostly it's because I don't want to disturb him when I work night shifts. I waited until my mother-in-law went to her room, then I went to my husband's room. Okay, she's in her room, time for me to get some sleep too, I thought. And so, I ended up sleeping in my husband's room for 2 days. My mother-in-law started to get suspicious because I seemed too happy. She began asking strange questions. Are you sure you're not feeling any discomfort or anything? She asked. What do you mean? I replied, avoiding her gaze. Oh, never mind, she said, dropping the subject. Was there something she was wondering about? Avoiding eye contact, my mother-in-law ate her meal alone. I had the night shift that day, so I planned to relax at home before heading to work. But relaxing isn't really an option for me since my mother-in-law never helps around the house. She enjoys telling me what to do while she sits on the couch, eating snacks and reading Japanese comics for women. She's probably reading and plotting her next move to make her annoying daughter-in-law upset. I glanced at the cover of her comic. It was titled Epic Mother and Daughter-in-Law Swamp Battle in English. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at her choice of reading material. Eventually, my husband returned from his business trip, but it was already 10 p.m. GH. I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a bath, he said. Sure, I'll heat it up for you. Have a beer while you wait, I suggested. Thanks, I will. Oh wait, it's not safe to drink alcohol before taking a bath. Okay, I'll have a non-alcoholic beer then, he reluctantly agreed, listening to my advice about the dangers of mixing alcohol and hot water. You'd think he'd know better. Even saunas have signs warning against entering if you're drunk. But no, common sense isn't so common for him or my mother-in-law. After that, my husband took his bath and started singing loudly. We live in a single-family home, but singing at this hour, our neighbors won't be pleased. La 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 la. Hey, you're too loud, I said. Shut it. You're the one being loud, he retorted. I quietly warned him to stop singing, but then my mother-in-law came into the bathroom area to join in. Watkin is just trying to enjoy himself singing. What's wrong with that? She said. What? You really don't know how to treat your husband, do you? Always so inconsiderate and complaining, my mother-in-law scolded me. Hey, I'm not the one always complaining, Mill, I replied. Talking back, huh? You're definitely not cute. Not that you're a beauty to begin with, she sneered. That's okay with me. I probably look like a knockout beauty in some other country, no worries, haha. After that, my husband got out of the bath and started drinking. It was already 10:30 p.m., and I needed to leave for the hospital where I work. Even though it's close by, there's a lot to do, so I have to leave early. Oh, by the way, I've been sleeping in your room. Would you mind sleeping in mine tonight? My clothes are all over, I mentioned to my husband. Sorry, sure. Doesn't matter to me, he replied. Okay, I'm heading out then. Take care, I whispered to my husband so Mill wouldn't hear. Just as I was about to grab my bag and leave, I heard my husband let out a loud groan. What? Watkin. He was curled up on the floor, holding onto his leg and moaning. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. Mill's face turned pale, and she started to panic. What's happening? Speak, she demanded. He couldn't say a word, no matter what I asked. There was no response. I felt like I needed to do something, but then I noticed something strange. The floor was unusually slippery. Even though I was wearing socks, it felt like I could easily fall. What on earth is this? I exclaimed. Ah, Watkin, Mill, what did you do? I didn't do anything. It's not my fault, Mill protested. Blaming my mother-in-law wouldn't solve anything at that moment, so I immediately called an ambulance. My husband was taken straight to our hospital, and work was the last thing on my mind. Even after we arrived, he kept clutching his leg, visibly sweating in pain. It hurts so bad, Watkin. Hang in there, please, I pleaded. Thankfully, a doctor was able to examine him, and he seemed a bit relieved. His leg was indeed broken, just as we suspected. It was a 5th metatarsal fracture, which made sense given how he slipped on that slick floor. His foot was visibly swollen. Usually, people get this kind of fracture by tripping or putting too much weight on it. Speaking from my own experience, I twisted my ankle falling downstairs years ago. I heard a loud snap, and the pain was unbearable. I was also diagnosed with a 5th metatarsal fracture. I was lost in music while walking downstairs, so it was quite embarrassing. I even lied to my close friends about it. Since his fracture didn't need hospitalization, my husband could come home. I was supposed to work a night shift, but my nursing supervisor insisted that I take the night off. It wasn't life-threatening, but I guess she was genuinely worried. I survived, but now I've got a fever, my husband remarked. Well, you broke your leg, so getting a fever isn't surprising. But why was the floor so slippery? Maybe we should ask Mill about that, huh? I suggested. Hey, what did you do to the floor in the room? I confronted Mill. Well, the floor was slippery. That's why I slipped and fell. I could have seriously hurt myself, my husband interjected. That room is for my daughter-in-law, so I greased the floor. What? I was hoping she would slip, so I put a lot of grease on the floor. I never expected you to go in there and slip, Mill confessed. Ah, unbelievable, I exclaimed. It turns out my mother-in-law intentionally greased the floor to make me fall. She had claimed to have cleaned the room, but her actual intention was to harm me. I'm furious. If I had entered that room, I could have been seriously injured. Breaking a leg would be the least of my worries. Hitting my head could have been fatal. My mother-in-law's actions are practically criminal. You're despicable. You're not even family to me anymore. I got seriously hurt because of you. I'm going to the police, I declared. Wait a minute. I didn't directly cause any harm, did I? Your wife is the one to blame. She told you to enter her room, didn't she? So this is all her fault, Mel retorted. Shut up. That's not the point. You're getting arrested. My husband furiously dialed the police. My mother-in-law tried to snatch the phone away but couldn't overpower him, even with a broken leg. My husband was desperately holding onto his phone, talking to the police. I couldn't help but wish I was at work, or even at the hospital, instead of dealing with this mess. Neighbors will eventually hear about this horrifying situation. Since she almost injured me too, maybe I should also involve the police. We don't know for sure, but she might be charged with attempted harm. Wait now. I don't want to go to the police, Mel protested. Really? You knew the risks when you did this, or did you think you could just make me disappear from this world? I snapped. Well, I did think it would be better if you just disappeared. Wow, you're the worst. Your mindset is criminal. Personally, I wish you'd just stay in jail forever, Mel sneered. Let's get a divorce, I declared. What? I can't keep living like this. If I stay in this house, I might actually be in danger one day. I'm too scared to live with that. Plus, I can't tolerate your lack of morals anymore, I explained. Wait, please don't say we'll divorce over this, my husband pleaded. Over this, you belittled me, called me defective. Do you even realize how much that hurts? I can manage without you just fine, I stated firmly. No, I need you. I was depending on your income. I even signed a new car contract. I finally got the Toyota Century I've always wanted from Japan. My husband protested. I don't care anymore, I said, feeling determined. I managed to clean the slimy floor and quickly packed my belongings into a bag. I stuffed more into my carry-on, took off my wedding ring, and placed it on the table. While searching through a shelf full of dishes, I thought about bringing the divorce papers. Ah, found it. The divorce papers you wrote before. Remember how you wrote that if I can't have a child within 2 years, we divorce? Thanks. I can't have children now, so let's divorce, I declared, holding the papers in my hand. You must feel relieved now, I added. Wait, what about the loan for my Century? My husband asked. Who cares? I replied dismissively. I left the house and went straight to the hospital. The compassionate charge nurse didn't ask many questions when I showed up. She seemed to understand I had my reasons. Being a nurse, I can support myself without relying on a husband. I wondered why I endured being treated poorly by my in-laws, enduring their mean comments. The whole situation felt ridiculous, so I decided to focus solely on my job and stop dwelling on it. The next morning, I filed for divorce, and he's now my ex-husband. Given the emotional pain he caused me, I consulted a lawyer about getting compensation. In the end, my ex-husband had to pay me, and I couldn't help but think serves you right. Since the police got involved, it seems the neighbors have been avoiding my mother-in-law because she blabbed about why my ex-husband broke his bone. Everyone thinks she's a terrible parent, which is understandable. My ex-husband no longer wants anything to do with her and seems to have kicked her out. Though there is some kind of survivor's benefit program, it doesn't pay much. She's been crying that living alone is impossible. She loves to eat, and because of her, our grocery bills were outrageous, so living on just the survivor's benefit would mean a very modest lifestyle. As for my ex-husband, I don't care what happens to him anymore. He mentioned something about taking out a car loan, but I have no idea what happened with that. I assumed he wouldn't be able to afford it on his salary. He took me for granted and thought I would contribute money too, which annoyed me so much. Even though he's not particularly wealthy, he's the type to buy a new car without thinking. Later, I started dating a doctor at the hospital, and 2 years after that, we got married and were blessed with a child, which felt like a miracle after all I'd been through. From now on, I'm committed to doing my best for my family. I got a call from my self-centered sister-in-law out of the blue. She told me she left her baby at our doorstep and asked me to take care of it for a week. But there was a big problem. I had moved out of that house just the day before. When I told her this, she started yelling at me, saying she was overseas and demanding that I find the baby immediately. I panicked and drove back to the old house. But there was no baby to be found. I realized I needed to call the police. As I dialed the number with shaky hands, I remembered something truly shocking. I've been married to Scott for 10 years, but we never had children. I'm 38 now, and my younger sister-in-law, Lindsay, who's 5 years younger, often takes advantage of me. Her husband is a big shot, and mine works for him, so Lindsay always asks me to do things for her. It's usually just a quick drive away. But ever since she got pregnant, she's been making more demands, even making me clean and cook for her. I love helping people, but I've been telling my husband that Lindsay is being too selfish. He keeps asking me to help her out a bit longer, promising he'll talk to her husband about it. But it seems like he's influenced by Lindsay's husband too. So reluctantly, I keep going to Lindsay's whenever she calls. Oh, my stomach feels so heavy. Michelle, can you grab the TV remote for me? Huh? What? Even though she was only 3.5 months pregnant, her belly looked bigger than expected. But she was naturally a bit plump, so I didn't say anything. Maybe it'd be good for your health to move around a bit, I suggested. Don't tell me what to do when you've never been pregnant, she snapped back. Taking care of this baby is important for our future. What's wrong with that? She lounged on the couch, keeping her arrogant attitude, which started getting on my nerves. But when I questioned if you could know the baby's gender at 3.5 months, she got angry. You're so old-fashioned. Nowadays, you can find out the gender early, Lindsay insisted, and I didn't feel like arguing, so I just listened to her complaints. You're just jealous because you can't have a baby. It's not good for the baby's development. If anything happens, it's your fault. She started using the unborn baby to threaten me, making it hard to be around her. I quickly finished my tasks and leave feeling suffocated by Lindsay's behavior. When I talked to my husband after work, he comforted me, saying just hang in there a little longer. But despite his words, I still felt uneasy. It was hard to keep feeling this way. I started making excuses whenever Lindsay called, avoiding her requests. But then she complained to my husband, saying I was being mean to her, which left me feeling lost. Even when I said I was busy, she ignored it and kept calling. Eventually, I had to pick up, and she screamed at me, threatening my brother's job at the company, reminding me that her husband was the president. My husband, always gentle and trying to avoid trouble, urged me to go to Lindsay's place. Time went by, and Lindsay gave birth to a boy a month early. The baby weighed over 140, which seemed big for a premature birth. But not knowing much about pregnancy, I accepted it. Lindsay named him Chris, and after she left the hospital, she called me to take care of him, saying it would be good practice for when I had my home. Despite my annoyance with Lindsay, I visited her every time she called, thinking she must be struggling after giving birth. Plus, Chris was just too cute. Chris, you're such a good boy. Grow up healthy. Changing diapers and bathing him didn't feel like a chore when I saw his face. But after 3 months, Lindsay started leaving Chris at my house more often. What's going on? You're all dressed up, I asked. I have a dinner with people from my husband's work. You take care of Chris while I'm out, she said, as she regained her strength. I realized how busy the wife of a president could be, and I took care of the baby diligently, but Lindsay started leaving Chris with me more often. Thanks for today. Isn't this too much? Are you just accompanying your husband? My husband is handling an important deal, and I'm helping out. You should too, Lindsay said, forcing Chris onto me and rushing out. I couldn't help but wonder if she was really helping with that flimsy dress she was wearing. Despite my doubts, I couldn't ignore the baby, so I took care of him as usual. But that day was different. When I changed his diaper, Chris had diarrhea. He seemed energetic and didn't have a fever, so I made sure to keep the room warm. In the evening, when Lindsay came to pick up Chris, I told her about it. She accused me loudly, saying I did something to Chris out of spite. I denied it, just as my husband Scott came home. What's all this noise in the entryway, Scott? I trusted your wife with Chris, and now he has diarrhea, Lindsay said, her usually harsh tone turning meek as she started crying. I understand your concern, but Michelle doesn't have much experience with babies. It might have just been a bit cold today. I'll apologize on her behalf, so please forgive her, my husband defended me. I felt puzzled why I had to apologize when I hadn't done anything wrong. I saw Lindsay and Chris off, feeling frustrated. While making dinner in a low mood, my husband suddenly got serious and took out an envelope from his bag. "Michelle, we need to talk about something important." "Dinner can wait. Please sit down," he said, spreading out documents on the table. The words he told me were shocking, something I never imagined. But seeing his determination, I nodded quietly. A week later, while I was unpacking boxes, Lindsay called. "I left a bag at your entrance. Take care of him for a week." "What? What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. It's my baby, of course. You've already brought him inside, haven't you?" After hearing the whole story, it turned out that since I wasn't home, she had put Chris in a bag and hung it on the doorknob. Hearing this, I panicked. "Wait a minute. We moved out yesterday. We're not going back to that house. Please go and pick up Chris right away." But Lindsay didn't believe me, saying, "What?" Lying again. When I insisted it was true, she suddenly panicked. It turns out she left Chris 5 hours ago. Plus, I was shocked to learn she was currently on an overseas trip. Despite it being spring, it was still chilly outside. "Go pick up Chris now. Hurry up." More worried about the baby than angry at Lindsay, I immediately drove off. An hour later, I arrived at our old house and checked the entrance, but there was no sign of Chris. I checked the garden thoroughly and asked the neighbors, but no one saw anything, I said, feeling frustrated. I thought no crying or injuries either. "What's happening?" Feeling hopeless without any clues, I was about to call the police when my phone rang. "What? What did you say?" The call was so shocking that I couldn't even speak. After hanging up, I was so stunned that I just wandered around until Lindsay called. "He was in the eco bag at the entrance, right?" "He's not there. I can't find him anywhere." "This is bad. If we don't find Chris, my husband might divorce me. It'll be your fault if we don't find him," Lindsay said, her voice trembling with panic over the phone. Since there was nothing else to do, I told her I would report to the police and ask for help. But she adamantly refused. "Doing that will make it a big deal, and my husband will find out. Chris' safety is more important than your reputation. Chris is just a tool to extract money from my husband," Lindsay said, revealing her selfishness, unconcerned about me. I could hear Lindsay talking with someone else. Later she said, "This trip is ruined. I couldn't get a flight today, but I'm coming back tomorrow. Don't tell my husband anything. If you find Chris, contact me immediately. I'll do what I can." After I agreed, Lindsay hung up. The next day at the airport, Lindsay arrived with a man, looking displeased. "Michelle, what are you doing here? Did you find Chris?" "I came to tell you something important. Chris has gone somewhere you can't reach." "It's too late," Lindsay said, panicking as I looked sad. "You're lying. What am I supposed to tell my husband, you useless thing? Find a baby that looks like him right now." "How can you say that? Are you even a mother?" Lindsay suggested finding a baby of the same age to deceive her husband. Overwhelmed with anger and sadness, tears started to flow. But I wiped them away and met her gaze firmly. "Instead of looking for a similar child, talk to this person," I said, as a woman hiding behind me, her face covered by a deep hood, revealed herself. Both Lindsay and the man with her started trembling. Yes, this woman was the wife of Lindsay's affair partner. The man was too shocked to move as his wife confronted him, yelling, "You scum, I'll knock some sense into you." He pleaded pathetically, "Please forgive me." But his wife was unforgiving, telling him bite down hard, and then slapped him repeatedly. The force was so strong that passersby stopped to watch. After leaving the man collapsed and clutching his cheek, she turned to face Lindsay. Lindsay quickly begged and started talking fast. "Listen, don't get it wrong. We're not in that kind of relationship." "What?" "Hey, Michelle, stop recording with your smartphone," Lindsay snapped, seeing me recording the scene. But I remained calm. "Then how do you explain this?" I pulled out an envelope containing emails between Lindsay and her affair partner, along with cozy photos of them from social media. Lindsay tried to grab them from me, glaring menacingly. "Snooping like that is despicable. How did you find his wife's contact information?" "I actually met his wife by chance," I said. When I saw Lindsay's affair partner on social media, his face seemed familiar. After thinking, I realized he was the husband of the woman who works at my regular hair salon. He too was a hairstylist, but unlike his successful wife, who owned several shops and was skilled, He was known for not working and just playing around. He was a typical husband living off his wife's success. When I told his wife about Lindsay's affair trip, she said, "I've reached my limit. I'm joining in." She came with me, and I was honestly surprised at how terrifying she could be when angry, considering she's usually gentle and kind. The Playboy hairstylist couldn't stand up to his wife and kept begging, "Please don't divorce me." Watching her steadfast refusal, I felt determined. Plus, I started to wonder if Chris was born from the affair. "What? Don't make things up without proof," Lindsay said. "But he was born a month early and weighed over 140 grams. That's definitely too big. Have you been fudging the weeks?" I pulled out another envelope and showed her the documents inside. One was a maternal and child health handbook. Another proved that Lindsay's husband wasn't Chris' biological father. "You played dirty, but tearing this up won't erase what happened." Lindsay snatched the DNA test results from my hand and tore them up, looking pleased. But that wasn't going to let her off the hook. "You better talk directly to the person who gave me these documents," I said, showing Lindsay my smartphone. Her eyes widened, and she looked like she was about to scream. No wonder, the screen showed Lindsay's husband. I wasn't recording. I was on a video call with Lindsay's husband. "Lindsay, you lied about going to your parents' house and deceived me," he said. Lindsay stammered, not making much sense in response. Standing in front of her, I began to speak slowly. "Listen carefully. I'm going to explain everything step by step." A week ago, her husband, suspecting something, had requested a DNA test between himself and Chris. He also lied about going on a business trip for a week to monitor her actions. Lindsay, unaware of this, immediately contacted her lover by email and booked an overseas trip in a rush. She didn't even think to erase her browsing history on the day of the trip. After leaving Chris in an echo bag at the entrance of the house I was living in, Lindsay went off to the station humming a tune. Your husband followed her and took care of Chris. If he had been left at the entrance for over 5 hours, who knows what could have happened. What? So Chris is alive? Lindsay's husband exclaimed. Yes, he's with me now. The call I was about to make to the police when I couldn't find Chris was from Lindsay's husband. Surprised but eager to understand the situation fully, I immediately went to his house. Chris was full of energy, playing with a rattle. While hearing about the past events, I remembered that despite being born a month early, he weighed over 140 ounces. At the time, I reluctantly accepted it, but I indeed thought it was strange. With Lindsay's husband's permission, I searched through Lindsay's belongings and found her maternal and child health handbook. Looking at its contents, I discovered that Lindsay had falsified the baby's weeks. Why did Lindsay do such a thing? Looking back at the actual timing of her pregnancy, it was exactly when her husband was away on a long business trip for about 2 months. Therefore, it was impossible for him to be the father of the baby. Realizing that she was pregnant with her lover's child, Lindsay thought she could deceive everyone by fudging the birth month, especially since the baby turned out to be unexpectedly big. That's when I became suspicious. The person who was in love, and now everyone knows about the child, started saying sorry a lot to their wife. But their wife said coldly, "You'll have to manage on your own now," and gave them divorce papers. Then she kicked her crying husband and left. She walked away with confidence. Meanwhile, Lindsay's husband didn't stay quiet. He said, "I'm divorcing you, obviously. Go be with that other man." "No, I just thought he looked nice. He doesn't have any money. You were only with me for the money, right?" Lindsay got emotional as she admitted the truth. "You said Chris was just a way to get money from your husband." "Don't talk nonsense. I heard about your phone call yesterday from Michelle. I had recorded everything to make sure Lindsay couldn't deny it later." Lindsay's husband had been quietly listening until then, his face red with anger. When Lindsay was confronted with the truth, she seemed a bit scared at first. Then she looked at her phone and said, "If Chris is fine, then everything's okay, right? And even though he's not your biological child, I gave birth to him, so he's like your child." Both Lindsay's husband and I were shocked by her selfish reasoning. Thinking she had cleverly avoided the issue, Lindsay looked proud. But then her husband said, "It's over," and hung up the phone suddenly. Lindsay tried to call him back, but he had blocked her. Then I reminded her that leaving Chris alone in a bag and going out was against the law. She shook her head in disbelief. I showed her the law on my phone, and she suddenly got scared and collapsed. "Lindsay, it's over between us. Goodbye." Giving Lindsay a cold glance, I walked away, feeling a shiver down my spine. When I looked back, I saw Lindsay's eyes were red, and she had a scary expression on her face. I'll tell Scott you're to blame for all of this because you moved without telling me. My husband decided to move because he felt sorry for me being used by you. He knows everything about what happened, and he never wants to see you again. Lindsay thought her brother would support her, but when she realized he had left her too, she screamed loudly. It's shocking how selfish someone can be, not once considering Chris. Stop crying and go get Chris right now. If I'm getting divorced, I don't need the baby. What kind of person are you? I won't forget what you said. Chris will never go back to you, no matter what. After cutting ties with my sister-in-law for good, I walked away with a strong determination. Later, I reported Lindsay's cruel act of abandoning the baby to the police. Although Chris was quickly kept safe, what Lindsay did was considered too heartless, and she faced serious consequences from the police. Lindsay ended up getting divorced by her husband and rejected by her own family, leaving her completely alone. She was sued by her ex-husband for leaving the baby and deceiving him, and he demanded $30,000 in compensation. Lindsay and her lover had to borrow money to pay the settlement, and because they'd borrowed from a sketchy company, Lindsay had to work in a shady place to pay off the debt. My determination was to raise Chris as my own child. When I shared this with my husband, he happily agreed. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, I'm also expecting a new baby. I'll take care of these children with love and make sure they have a happy and free life. Hi, I'm Jessica. I work in an office and I'm 35 years old. Right now, my husband Bob and I are staying with his parents because he got transferred. But don't worry, it's just temporary. Bob seems happy to be back in his old home, but I'm really eager to find our own place and move out soon. The thing is, I don't get along with my in-laws very well, especially my mother-in-law. She's always been a bit mean, but now that we're living together, she's even tougher to deal with. Jessica, why haven't you gone shopping yet? You missed the early sale at the supermarket. You're not very good at shopping efficiently, are you? I forgot to mention, I work from home with permission from my company, but I still have to work during the weekdays. So I don't have the chance to go shopping during the supermarket's early bird sale time. Mom, I've told you many times I work during the day, so I can only go shopping after 5 p.m. But every time I say this, my mother-in-law starts criticizing me. Look at her, so full of herself, can't even have a child. Bob and I don't have kids. We haven't gone to the hospital to see if there's a reason why. I really wanted a child, but with Bob's salary, we couldn't afford the expensive treatments to help us have one. Even before we moved in with Bob's parents, my mother-in-law's mean comments bothered me, but it was easier to handle when we lived apart. Now that we're together all the time, I hear her rude remarks nonstop. My father-in-law doesn't say mean things directly, but he bothers me in his own way. He thinks women over 30 are old, and since I'm 35, he treats me like I'm ancient. Hey, old lady, pass me the ashtray. And why are you wearing a skirt? Nobody wants to see your legs. I want to say, if I'm old, what does that make you, about to turn 60? I'm not a pushover, so I always talk back when they say something rude about me. But that just makes our relationship worse, because they think I'm being bossy. The atmosphere in the house is always tense, and I'm starting to feel the strain of living here. But after Bob's transfer, he started working more on weekends and going on more business trips, so we haven't had a chance to talk about moving out. Jessica, I have another business trip this weekend. You just got back from one yourself. Seems like this new branch requires a lot of travel. Before his transfer, Bob had to work late sometimes, but he hardly ever worked on weekends or went on business trips. I get that work changes when you change jobs, but isn't this a bit too much? Because of all this, we haven't been able to find a new place to live, even though we were only supposed to stay with my in-laws temporarily. What if we end up having to stay with them for a long time? That thought really scares me. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. While unpacking Bob's bag after his business trip, I found a piece of paper in his pocket. It turned out to be a printout from a travel website. At first, I thought it was just his flight and hotel details for his trip. But as I looked closer, I couldn't believe what I saw. There was a hotel reservation that included tickets to Disneyland for 2 people, and the date was for the same day Bob said he was on his business trip. Obviously, Bob's work has nothing to do with Disneyland. They deal with seafood, not theme parks. But that's not the point. This meant that Bob wasn't really on a business trip, he was actually spending 2 days at Disneyland. And since the hotel reservation was for 2 people, it was pretty clear he was there with someone else. While I was still processing this shock, I heard Bob humming "It's a Small World After All" in the shower, the famous song from Disneyland. He must have been reminiscing about his trip and humming without realizing. But it seems like fun attractions aren't the only things on his mind during these business trips. I was so furious that I was ready to storm into the bathroom and confront Bob. But just as I was about to, his phone rang. I was too angry to think straight, so I picked up the call without hesitation. "Hello, hello." For a brief moment, I heard a woman's voice, and then the call ended abruptly. Could it be? I was convinced that the call was from the woman Bob went to Disneyland with, his mistress. When she heard my voice on Bob's phone, she must have panicked and hung up. I decided to check the call history on his phone. Bob isn't really careful about security, so I guessed his passcode might be his birthday. And just like that, the phone unlocked. But what I found on his phone left me reeling. There was undeniable evidence of his affair all over it. The photo gallery was full of selfies of him and another woman. The dates on the photos matched up with the times Bob said he was on business trips or working late. I couldn't believe how careless he was, leaving behind pictures of their intimate moments. I checked the call history again and saw the name Melissa Smith. So I looked for the same name in his WhatsApp contacts and opened their chat. "Bob, I love you. I want to be your wife soon." It seemed like this Melissa was hoping to marry Bob. Maybe she's the one causing trouble in our relationship. While I was thinking about this, Bob came out of the bathroom. "Ah, that was refreshing," he said casually, drying his hair with a towel. Facing Bob, who was drying his hair with a towel as if nothing was wrong, I didn't waste any time. "Feeling refreshed, huh? Seems like you're refreshed in more ways than one, huh?" I confronted him. "Who is Melissa Smith?" I demanded. Bob flinched at the mention of her name. "So it's true. You've been lying about your business trips and spending time alone with this woman, Melissa Smith. Were all those trips and extra work days just lies? It's unforgivable." "Why would you? How did you?" I pointed my smartphone at Bob, showing him the evidence. "All the proof is right here in this phone. And don't talk about privacy invasion when you're the one who's been cheating. It's ironic that a man who's cheating can complain about privacy. If you don't want people to see, set a better password." Before we got married, Bob and I promised each other he wouldn't cheat. I told him if he did, I'd leave him immediately. My feelings haven't changed. I can't stay married to someone who's with another woman. Let's get a divorce. When I mentioned divorce, Bob surprisingly agreed without arguing. "Yeah, I guess so." It caught me off guard. I expected more resistance. Was he already prepared for divorce once he got caught cheating? "I'll go get the divorce papers tomorrow. You can tell your parents," I told him. Bob's agreement was surprisingly casual, but once the decision was made, there was no turning back, and I had no intention of doing so. Was this the end of our marriage? I felt a pang of sadness. The next day, I left early to pick up the divorce papers from the city office and run some other errands. When I returned home late at night, I found my husband and his parents waiting for me. "So you finally decided to come back. We were wondering how long you were going to wander around," my mother-in-law remarked as soon as she saw me. With Bob present, she should already know about his cheating and our decision to divorce. Shouldn't she say something like an apology before making a snide comment? But instead of apologizing, my mother-in-law said something unbelievable. "Well, it doesn't matter. At least you're finally leaving. We don't want to see your face anymore, so it's just as well you've been gone all day." "What do you mean?" I asked, taken aback. With a smug smile, my mother-in-law replied to my question, exactly as I said. "I'm fed up with seeing your face. Now that Bob is back, you were just in the way. You're always talking back and you lack any charm. Even when I tried to make you uncomfortable enough to leave, it took you so long to catch on. I finally had to use my secret weapon." "Secret weapon?" I repeated, confused. My mother-in-law looked pleased. "You already know the name of Bob's girlfriend, right?" "Yes, something like Smith." Why was she checking if I knew the name of Bob's mistress? You see, I have a friend from my book club, Mrs. Smith. Her daughter is such a well-mannered, charming young lady. She's 10 years younger than you, only 25. At that age, she can have kids easily. Then my mother-in-law dropped a bombshell. So I introduced Mrs. Smith's daughter to Bob. Excuse me? I was shocked. I never expected my mother-in-law to say something like this to me. Are you saying, mother-in-law, you arranged Bob's affair? Oh, arranged sounds so scandalous. I simply introduced them, she replied proudly. I couldn't believe that a mother would encourage her own son to cheat on his wife, and she was so proud to tell me about it. What a terrible mother. Well, I had no other choice. Bob is our only child. We need him here. I would have even accepted you as my daughter-in-law if you'd had children. But all you did was work, never giving us any grandchildren, she continued. Beside her, my father-in-law nodded in agreement, so he was aware of his wife's actions. Do you understand? A 35-year-old woman who can't even have kids is no longer necessary. If you get it, then hurry up and leave, my mother-in-law said triumphantly, pointing at me. After a moment of silence, I replied, I understand your perspective very clearly. I'll leave as you wish. I'll take all my things with me. Oh, please do. I doubt you have much to take with you anyway. Do you need help moving? My mother-in-law laughed. Even though she didn't know it, I would have the last laugh. No, it's fine. Don't worry about me. Everything's already arranged. Huh? My mother-in-law looked surprised since I wasn't crying or upset. Besides, mother-in-law, I'm well aware that you were helping Bob cheat on me. What? Bob asked in a panic. So, what did you expect? That I would let you cheat behind my back and not say anything to the other woman? I made sure to note down her phone number when I checked your phone yesterday, I said calmly. Melissa was quite surprised when I called her and said, I'm Bob's wife. I'd like to meet with you. Apparently, you've been lying to her, claiming that you're single. I set the record straight. Bob, my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law were all stunned. They never expected me to take such decisive action in just one day. Melissa found out that she was the other woman in your affair, and she was really upset. And Mrs. Smith was furious too. Bob, your mother, and you, father-in-law, she even talked about suing both of you for marriage fraud. I couldn't help but feel for her. So I promised to assist her in any way I could. What? Bob was visibly shaken, and my mother-in-law was in the same state. Considering the ordeal Melissa went through, I've chosen not to seek any compensation from her. Instead, I'll increase the amount I'm demanding from you, Bob, and you, mother-in-law and father-in-law. Compensation. Why should we have to pay for anything? My father-in-law blurted out in panic. It's one thing if it's just Bob, but we're not involved. He seemed to expect his son to face consequences for his actions, but they never imagined they'd be held accountable too. You think you can benefit without facing any consequences? That's not how it works, I replied. Actually, you are involved. The emotional distress caused by your behavior is more than enough reason for compensation, don't you think? As I said this with a smile, my father-in-law fell silent. And let's not forget what I do for a living. I work at a law firm. Why don't I consult with my boss, the attorney, and see just how much we can squeeze out of you in compensation? I already told my lawyer at the company about what's going on. Then we heard a car pull up in the driveway. Oh, they're here. Hi, we're from a moving company, I said with a friendly smile as I went to the door. Thanks for coming at such a late time. I'm sorry for asking on short notice. No worries. We had an opening for the night shift. It actually worked out well for me. I got some other stuff done. So let's get started right away. Oh, and be careful, there are some fragile things. As I welcomed them in, a bunch of movers came into the house and started collecting our stuff. Wait, hang on. My mother-in-law interrupted. They started packing up my stuff just like I asked, moving quickly and efficiently. They packed up not just my clothes, books, and computer, but also the things in the living room and kitchen. Hey, wait a minute. Don't take that. It's ours. My mother-in-law complained. No, I brought all of these things here when we moved in. They're mine, I explained calmly. When Bob and I first moved here because of his job, the appliances in the in-laws' house were old and worn out. I couldn't stand it, so I had our appliances sent over from our old apartment. Now it seemed like my mother-in-law had gotten used to the new appliances and thought they were hers. There was a robot vacuum, a cordless cleaner, a fancy oven that could do lots of things, an induction cooktop, a special hairdryer, and an espresso machine. You're taking everything, you greedy woman. My mother-in-law yelled and tried to grab me, but Bob stopped her. Mom, it's all Jessica's stuff. We can't change that, he explained. It looked like Bob understood what was happening. But my mother-in-law wasn't ready to give up. Once you get used to better appliances, it's hard to go back, right? If you're not happy, why don't you just buy new ones? But after paying compensation, it seems unlikely you'll have enough money for fancy appliances. While all this was happening, the movers were quickly loading my things into their truck as I directed them. They nodded to me and climbed into the truck. All right, I'm heading to the new address too. Please make sure everything arrives safely, I told them. As I watched the moving truck drive away, I got into my car. Wait, this car is mine too. Where's that truck going? Bob asked. Huh? Oh, I'm taking it to my old apartment, the one I lived in before we had to move because of your job transfer. It's my apartment. The apartment I bought when I was single was put up for sale by a real estate agent because Bob got transferred for work. But since the price was too high, it never sold, and I still own it. The agent kept suggesting lowering the price, but I'm glad I didn't. I never thought something like this would happen. As I buckled my seatbelt, I chuckled quietly, thinking that maybe, just maybe, I had a feeling deep down that this would happen. What? Bob looked confused, making a puzzled face. I set the selling price higher than the market rate on purpose so it wouldn't sell. That way, I could always go back to my apartment, I explained. Bob seemed to lose his strength upon hearing my words. You're. Feeling confident in my plan and letting my guard down, I suddenly felt a shove from my mother-in-law, who charged at me yelling. I groaned in pain as she tried to throw a cutting board at me for another attack, but then she was tackled by a black object and fell down screaming. Ah, thank you, Blackie, I said, holding the black object, a stray cat named Blackie. I quickly got into the moving truck and rushed to my new place to get away from my mother-in-law. I don't know why Blackie the stray cat was there at that moment, but I'm sure he came to help me because he has a strong sense of justice. I'll give him some catnip as a thank you gift later. After that, Bob and I got divorced. The law firm where I work filed a lawsuit for compensation against Bob and his parents. It's a real blessing that the young lawyers in training at the office took on my case for almost no fee at all. Even though a new young lawyer is handling my case, I feel safe because they have the support of a senior lawyer. As for the lawsuit against Melissa Smith, the senior lawyer himself took it on, not the trainees. He said he will file both criminal and civil lawsuits because of the seriousness of the situation. He mentioned he's excited to file a criminal lawsuit since it's been a while. Even if they sell their house to pay Melissa Smith and me, it probably won't be enough. Thinking about the life of poverty and debt waiting for them, I can't help but smile. I'm alone now, but compared to living with those in-laws and my unfaithful husband, it feels like heaven. For now, I want to enjoy the simple single life with Blackie, the cat I unintentionally brought to my apartment.